Thousands of years ago, after the death of Prophet Sulaiman, a mystical and special ring disappeared. One of the most mysterious objects in the world. With this ring that came from paradise, King Sulaiman ruled over jinn, animals, and many other beings. The ring is mentioned in the Old Testament and in many esoteric sources. It even has surprising similarities with the ring shown in the movie The Lord of the Rings. According to the stories, whoever owns this ring can rule the whole world. But who is searching for this ring of extraordinary powers today? According to prophecies, the ring will one day fall into the hands of a power you would never expect, and it will be used over people. Recently, news appeared claiming the ring has been found. Unbelievable mysteries await you in this video series. You are watching Religious Story TV. Subscribe to the channel and like the video so you don't miss more of these stories. If you are ready, let's begin. Allah not only made Prophet Sulaiman one of the 4 rulers who had power over the world, but He also gave him prophethood. His strange life and miracles left those who heard them amazed. He could rule over the jinn and make them work under His command. He could understand the language of animals and speak with them, and even the winds were given to him. His wealth and treasures were so great that nothing like them had ever been seen on earth. Even today, many people are still searching for his hidden treasure, while people are looking for the lost temple of Prophet Sulaiman. At the same time, this ring is also being searched for, even today, for world domination. Now, let us go back to those times, to the period when the ring would first be used. When Adam and Hawa were sent from paradise to earth thousands of years ago, Prophet Adam brought with him a ring. This ring was a gift given to him by Allah. The ring that came from paradise carried a special knowledge. Whoever wore it in this world would gain extraordinary powers. According to the stories, when Adam came down from paradise, the ring came down with him. On one side of the ring were written the words, "The kingdom belongs to Allah." Prophet Adam, who is said to have lived for nearly 1,000 years, returned to paradise after his death. A very long time passed. Humanity multiplied on the earth and spread across different lands. Then Allah sent the angel Jibril with a mission concerning the ring. It was decided that the ring would once again be given to a person on earth as a trust. That person was none other than Dawud. With Allah's permission, Jibril took the ring and descended to Dawud. The ring of power had left paradise for the second time. But who was Dawud at that time, and for what purpose was the ring given to him? Prophet Dawud lived about 1,000 years after Ibrahim. In his childhood, he was a shepherd who looked after his family's sheep and lambs. As he grew older, he joined the army. But at first, he was not yet well known or loved by everyone. At that time, there was a warrior known as Jalut, whose name is mentioned in the Qur'an. He was the eternal enemy of the children of Israel and was considered almost impossible to defeat. Jalut, also known as Goliath, is described in many sources as a giant, and some believe his real height was around 3 meters. During one of the battles, Prophet Dawud challenged Jalut. Using only a sling, he struck the giant warrior and brought him down. This drew everyone's attention to him. In a short time, he became famous and beloved. In the Qur'an, Surah al-Baqarah, verse 251, it is said, "By Allah's permission, they defeated them. Dawud killed Jalut, and Allah gave him kingdom and wisdom and taught him what he willed. If Allah did not check one set of people by means of another, the earth would indeed be full of mischief, but Allah is full of bounty for all the worlds. From this verse, we understand that Allah gave great blessings to Prophet Dawud. In the story where the ring was brought to him, we can also see that there was hidden wisdom behind it. This ring, on which the al-Azam was written, would give the one who wore it the power, by Allah's permission, to control the Jinn, the winds and the animals. According to what is mentioned in Tabari, when Jibril brought the ring to Dawud, the following event is said to have happened. O Dawud, as Allah has commanded, gather your children. Ask each of them these questions I will give you. Whoever answers correctly will take your place and receive this ring. Then he will rule over the whole world. So Prophet Dawud gathered his sons in front of the people and asked them one by one the questions that Jibril had given him. What is the most beautiful thing in the world? What is the ugliest thing? What is the roughest thing? What is the sweetest thing? The questions were different from each other. Among them, only Sulaiman gave the correct answers to all of them. But the test became even harder. Although Prophet Dawud was full of wisdom, strong intuition, and a heart deeply connected to his Lord, and he had already decided to choose Sulaiman, he knew that the children of Israel might object. They could question his leadership because Sulaiman was only 12 years old at that time. His brothers were older and stronger. Like Prophet Yusuf, he too was one of the youngest among his brothers. For this reason, Dawud made the test even more difficult so that the children of Israel would also be satisfied. He said, "What is the thing that if it is good makes the rest good, and if it is corrupted makes the rest corrupted?" Everyone gave their own answers, but only one answer pleased the children of Israel. When Sulaiman said, "It is the heart," he won everyone's approval. Still, there was one last trial. Prophet Dawud wrote the names of each of his sons on their staffs and locked them in a room. Later, when they entered the room again, only the staff of Prophet Sulaiman had blossomed and grown leaves. After this, Sulaiman was accepted by everyone and took his first step toward kingship. In this way, the choice of Sulaiman among the 19 sons of Dawud was accepted by all, because he had answered all the questions in a way that no one could deny. But there was one thing that Prophet Dawud was not pleased with. While answering every question, Prophet Sulaiman kept smiling in a way that seemed disturbing. Prophet Dawud said, "Yes, he gave all the correct answers. But I could not understand why, in front of so many people, he laughed in such an improper way and made me look small." Prophet Sulaiman replied, "I did not know the correct answers to these questions myself." But after each question was asked, an ant over there whispered the right answer to me. I only repeated to you what I heard from it. It appeared that Sulaiman had received all his answers from an ant, but this would not change the decision of Prophet Dawud. In the end, Sulaiman had given the right answers. The real goal was to reach Allah, and if the means was even an ant, surely there was wisdom in it. Dawud, by Allah's permission, gave him the ring. Thus, the ring, through the mission of Jibril, had first passed to Adam, then to Dawud, and from him to Sulaiman. According to what we learn from hadith, the ring will one day be passed to one more person. When you hear who that person is, you will be very surprised, because this person will use the ring in the future over the people of the earth. So don't go anywhere. Now let's take a closer look at the ring. Allah gave Prophet Sulaiman this ring, also called the Seal of Sulaiman. According to belief, it carried a secret of one of the hidden names of Allah, a name known only to very few people and angels. With this secret knowledge on the ring, and by Allah's permission, Prophet Sulaiman was given great power. With it, he became one of the greatest rulers ever, ruling over the Jinn, the animals, and the winds. When he wanted to command them, he would put on the ring and give his orders with it. The Seal of Sulaiman, this ring, is known among Muslims as Hatim Sulaiman, while Christians call it the Star of David. Since Prophet Sulaiman was from the children of Israel, the Jews later placed the Star of David symbol from the ring onto the flag of Israel. Today, this has caused some confusion among Muslims. Many people think of the star as belonging to Israel or even to the Masons. But historically, the use of this symbol by Israel is actually quite recent. During the Ottoman period, this symbol was often used in markets, on plates, on swords, in mosque decorations, and even on gravestones. Even today, it is still possible to see this six-pointed star in many places. In fact, this star symbol comes from Prophet Dawud, and Dawud, like all the other prophets, is also sacred to us Muslims. Today, many people wear a ring designed after the ring of Prophet Sulaiman as jewelry. It is said that wearing it in this way is allowed, but it is important to note that it does not bring any benefit to the one who wears it. Some people believe that by wearing this ring, they can keep jinn away from themselves, but unfortunately, this belief has no truth. The story of the power ring of Prophet Sulaiman and its similarities with the events in the Lord of the Rings movies is also striking. The idea of a power ring that gives its owner supernatural abilities is present there too, and it is clear that it was inspired by the life of Prophet Sulaiman. Now let us go back to the time of Prophet Sulaiman, to his army of jinn, and see where else he used them. Thousands of years ago, the beings of the jinn world crossed into our dimension and attacked humans. By entering into people, the jinn caused great chaos at that time. One of the most extraordinary events in human history took place during the time of Prophet Sulaiman, but the events he witnessed in his lifetime were not limited to this. The year was 970 before Christ. About 3,000 years ago in Gaza, a baby was born. No one knew yet that this child would one day rule his nation at a young age and become one of the 4 greatest rulers the world has ever seen. But the most important thing was neither his kingship nor the wealth he would inherit at a young age. Above all, he would be a prophet chosen by Allah. The death of his father, Prophet Dawud, was near. Before passing away, Dawud sat his son Sulaiman in front of him and gave him important advice. Do not expect anything from people, for this is the essence of true wealth. Do not desire the blessings that Allah has given to others and not to you, for this is the sign of poverty. Make sure that the day you are in is better than the day before. Stay away from actions and words that will make you apologize later, and when you are angry, leave the place you are in. A very short time later, Prophet Dawud, in the middle of his house, came face to face with the angel of death, Azrael. His rule had lasted for 40 years. He had conquered Jerusalem and made it the capital of his kingdom. He gave the children of Israel their most glorious period. Now it was the turn of his son, Prophet Sulaiman. Like all other prophets, he too would rule his people with justice. It was now the beginning of an extraordinary time for Prophet Sulaiman, the prophet known in history as the one who showed the most miracles. From this point on, incredible and mysterious events would take place. What you will hear until the end of this video will amaze you, so don't go anywhere. Allah had given a very important ring from paradise to Prophet Dawud. Before his death, Dawud entrusted it to his son, Sulaiman. This was the same ring that had first been gifted to Prophet Adam when he was in paradise. On the ring was written, the al-Azam, the greatest name of Allah. It was a name that only the angels knew, a name unknown to people, and one that could open all doors and give great power to its bearer. This ring had been brought from paradise to earth by the angel Jibril with Allah's permission, and now it had passed on to Prophet Sulaiman. With this ring, he would be able to bring the jinn, the animals, and the winds under his command, but the ring was only a tool. The real power came from Allah alone. For Allah, with just His word be, could create anything. In this story, by His wisdom, He made the ring a means of giving this power, and with it, the mission of Prophet Sulaiman began. This ring carries an unbelievable story that has reached us today, filled with strange and fascinating events. Allah granted Sulaiman not an ordinary kingdom, but the greatest miraculous rule in history. Sulaiman took a deep breath, looked up at the sky, and prayed, "My Lord, forgive me. Grant me such a kingdom that no one after me will ever have." And Allah accepted his prayer. One morning, as Sulaiman stood on the marble terrace of his palace, he noticed a strange movement in the air. Invisible beings circled around, whispering. Suddenly, gigantic fiery shapes appeared. These were the Jinn, the strongest of the devils. But Sulaiman was not afraid. He looked at the ring in his hand, the seal inscribed with Allah's al-Azam, and spoke with a commanding voice. "I will rule over you. Allah has given me authority over you." The mighty Jinn, the fierce Ifrits, the whispering devils, all of them fell to their knees at once. For the first and last time in history, the unseen world bowed before the seen world. As the Qur'an says, by His Lord's permission, we subjected the Jinn to work for Him. If any of them disobeyed our command, we made him taste the punishment of blazing fire. Sabah 12. Sulaiman wanted to complete the construction of Masjid al-Aqsa, which his father had left unfinished. But how could human workers finish such a task that would take years? He turned to the Jinn. "You will build this sanctuary." And an extraordinary scene began. Invisible hands placed stones in order. Fiery beings poured molten copper into molds. Flying Jinn lifted massive marble blocks and set them in place. As they worked for Sulaiman, they built palaces, statues, large basins like reservoirs, and heavy cauldrons fixed in place. Sabah 13. They worked day and night. Chained devils carried out His commands without rest. The children of Israel were astonished because these gigantic structures were rising, yet they heard no sound and saw no workers. Whispers spread among them. Sulaiman must be a great sorcerer. And so, they too turned toward magic. But Sulaiman came to know of this. Magic was a great sin, so he stopped them. He ordered all the books of sorcery to be collected and buried beneath his palace. Yet the children of Israel would not abandon these books. After his death, strange and troubling events would unfold, and in the final part, we will witness these mysterious events. The army of Sulaiman was the strangest army in history. As the Qur'an says in Surah An-Naml, his armies of jinn, humans, and birds were gathered for him, and they were kept in order. The battlefield showed scenes unlike any other. The formation of this army was unique. At the front marched lions, eagles, and other wild beasts. Their terrifying appearance alone struck fear into the hearts of enemies. Behind them came thousands of mounted horsemen, the finest warriors of the children of Israel. But what was truly astonishing were the invisible jinn soldiers. These beings, created from fire, moved through the air, reaching anywhere instantly and leaving the enemy in total confusion. The sky itself became a network of scouts. Thousands of birds made up Sulaiman's reconnaissance force. Eagles watched enemy movements from above. Hoopoes carried messages, and other birds brought news from every corner of the battlefield. To the enemies, it felt as if the very sky had turned against them. The sight was truly unmatched. Cavalry riding side by side with unseen jinn warriors, flocks of birds flying reconnaissance above, lions roaring on the ground, and eagles soaring in the air. The enemy could not even understand what they were facing. Many surrendered before the battle even began, bowing down to Sulaiman. With this magnificent army, Sulaiman ruled the entire known world of his time, from east to west, from north to south. All kings paid tribute to him, but Sulaiman's wealth did not only come from war spoils. He sent the Jinn deep into the seas. Since they could live underwater, they brought back the most precious pearls from the depths of the oceans. Each pearl was worth what ordinary people would call a fortune. The Jinn under his command also dug beneath the earth, the mountains and hidden places, bringing out gold and jewels. Sometimes they split open rocks to find the richest gold veins, melted the ore, and presented pure gold to Sulaiman. Gold and silver became so abundant that according to the Torah, they lost their value and were considered as common as stones. In his palace, there were massive cauldrons of gold and basins as large as pools. Kings from other nations came with gifts, pretending to seek his wisdom, but in truth hoping to share in his wealth. One day, Prophet Sulaiman gathered his army. In this army, there was an important bird known as Hudhud. Its duty was to fly long distances and act as a spy, gathering intelligence for the army. It would observe everything about the enemy, return, and give a detailed report to the commander. Hudhud had a very sensitive and important role within the army. At the time when the army was assembled, most of the animals noticed that Hudhud was missing. They whispered to each other in low voices, "The commander will soon arrive, and he will see that Hudhud is not here." Finally, when Prophet Sulaiman approached the army, the whispers grew louder. As he inspected the soldiers, he quickly realized that Hudhud was absent, but Hudhud was far away, in the land of the Queen of Sheba. It had flown a very long distance to get there, guided by a feeling that it was about to discover important news. Landing on the top of a tall tree above the city, Hudhud looked down. It observed the roads, the houses, the palaces and the city gates, watching everything carefully from the air. Soon it noticed something unusual. The people seemed to be gathering for a large ceremony. A Hudhud asked another bird in the area, "Oh, beautiful Hudhud, please tell me what is happening in this city." The bird replied, "The people are going to see their Queen of Sheba. Today is the important day of their sun worship ceremony." Hudhud now knew that its instincts had been correct. First, it saw the guards assembling, then the commanders and soldiers. Finally, the Queen of Sheba herself appeared, seated on her magnificent throne. Then she stepped down from the throne, raised her hands and led her people in, bowing down to the sun. The entire crowd followed her in prostration. Hudhud watched everything carefully. It knew this was great news to bring back, and it wondered how Sulaiman would react. Taking flight again, it crossed the long distance back, flying for days, until it finally returned to the place where the army was gathered. When Hudhud reached Prophet Sulaiman, it said, "My master, I have brought you certain news about a people you do not yet know. I saw a woman ruling them, sitting upon a great throne and having everything. But she and her people do not worship Allah. I saw them prostrating to the sun. Satan has made their actions seem pleasing to them." These words were indeed exciting. A Hudhud had now explained that its absence was due to an important mission. Sulaiman replied to all that he heard, "Of course, we must be sure whether you are telling the truth or lying. For this, you will take a letter that I will write and deliver it to them. Then we will see what answer they send back." When Sulaiman sealed the letter, Hudhud carried it in its beak and immediately set out for the land of Sheba. After flying long without rest, it arrived at the royal palace. From the garden, it spotted the largest room with a balcony, and it knew that this must be the queen's chamber. Hudhud flew inside through the open window, the letter still in its beak. It decided to hide behind a decoration on the ceiling. From there, it looked down and saw the queen sleeping on her bed. Her hair was spread over the pillow and her face was very beautiful. Hudhud hesitated. Should I drop the letter now or wait until she fully wakes up? As it wondered about this, the letter suddenly slipped from its beak and fell directly onto the queen's bed. The queen opened her eyes and found the letter before her. She looked around quickly but saw no one. Afraid, she opened the letter and read it quietly. This message is from Sulaiman. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, I invite you to believe in the one God. Do not show pride against me. Come to me and submit yourselves in peace. Queen Bilqis became angry. Looking around again to see who had brought the letter, she called her guards. Who dares to enter my chamber? Who brought this? The guards, shocked, swore that no one had entered. They insisted that throughout their watch they had stood with swords in hand, eyes open, and that no one had approached or entered the queen's room. Meanwhile, the Hudhud bird had hidden itself high above in a gap and was listening to everything. Queen Bilqis shouted, "Then where did this letter come from?" and raised the letter in her hand. The guards were stunned. They thought about where it might have come from, but none of them had seen anyone bring it. They were speechless with amazement. The queen immediately called an extraordinary meeting of her council. When the assembly gathered under her leadership, debates began. Many of the members leaned toward the side of war. But the final word was the queen's. She said, "When kings enter a land, they ruin it, and they make the honored people among it the lowest. I fear such a thing may happen to us, so let us send them gifts through our messengers and then wait to hear what news the messengers bring back." Since no one in the council objected, her proposal was accepted. Hudhud heard all these discussions. When the meeting ended, it flew away. Soon after, in the Queen's land, the people were ordered to prepare a gift of gold and jewels. No matter the cost, it must be a magnificent gift. Only a very precious gift could satisfy such a powerful king, the Queen thought. To her, Sulaiman was frightening, and they needed to win his favor because their future depended on his mercy. The best craftsmen of the land began working day and night to create the gift the Queen demanded. They used many valuable metals and stones. At last, the special gift prepared for the Queen was finished. When Bilqis saw it, she was pleased and delighted. She ordered her messengers to be ready and entrusted them with taking this gift to Sulaiman. But Prophet Sulaiman already knew what had been said in her council because Hudhud had informed him. While flying reconnaissance along the borders of the land, a Hudhud also spotted the caravan of messengers carrying the gift. It returned quickly and told Sulaiman everything. Sulaiman then ordered his army to prepare and line up to meet the Queen's messengers. When Bilqis's messengers arrived, they suddenly found themselves face to face with a mighty army. The messengers were shocked at what they saw. The army was not made of humans alone. There were lions, tigers, elephants, birds, and many other animals marching alongside the soldiers. They even saw that the army could travel from one place to another by means of the winds. Their eyes widened in disbelief, and their mouths remained open. This was a magnificent and terrifying army, unlike anything they had ever seen before. When they noticed weapons that moved on their own, their amazement and fear grew even stronger. Terrified, they whispered among themselves, asking what this could possibly be. The officer who escorted them said calmly, "This is only a small unit of the Jinn, doing their morning training." The messengers were left speechless. They became even more eager to meet Prophet Sulaiman. But when they finally spoke with him, things did not go as they had hoped. Prophet Sulaiman refused the Queen's expensive gifts and said, "Do you try to offer me wealth? What Allah has given me is far better than what He has given you. Take back your gift and return with it. If I come against you with a force you cannot even imagine, I will drive you out of your city as humble and powerless people." The messengers understood the message clearly. They returned to their land and told Queen Bilqis everything that had happened. Now the Queen had only one option left. She had to go to Sulaiman's palace and meet him face to face. At the same time, Prophet Sulaiman held a gathering in his own city. He said to his council, I expect the queen will come to meet me. But before she arrives, who among you can bring me her throne?" One of the jinn under his command stepped forward and said, "I can bring it to you before you rise from your seat." Everyone here knows my ability. But then, a scholar in the assembly, a man whom Allah had given special knowledge of Laduni, said, "I will bring it to you before your eyes can even blink." As soon as Prophet Sulaiman accepted this, in the blink of an eye, the throne of Queen Bilqis appeared before him. Perhaps for the first time in human history, something like teleportation had taken place. The throne was there, suddenly, right before their eyes. Everyone was astonished. The throne was massive and splendid. As they gazed at it, they began to reflect deeply on what they had just witnessed. Prophet Sulaiman was a wise prophet. After the throne was brought to him, he ordered that its design be changed. As the Queen of Sheba approached his land, she began to notice strange things along the way. What her messengers had told her was true. Unusual and extraordinary events were happening here. The closer she came to the palace, the greater her amazement grew. She saw part of Suleiman's army, the most powerful, terrifying, and extraordinary army ever gathered on earth. Her fear increased, her heart raced, and her breath grew short. She realized this was not something humans could achieve. There had to be a higher spiritual power behind it. The pride and confidence she once felt in her own kingdom began to fade. By the time she reached the city, her ego and arrogance had sunk into the ground. Her fear slowly turned into admiration. Soon, Bilqis stepped into the magnificent palace Sulaiman had built. What she saw was unlike anything she had ever witnessed. Sulaiman's kingdom was not built only on wealth and power, but also on incredible art and architecture. Golden columns, doors decorated with jewels, and fine craftsmanship dazzled her eyes. The most stunning sight was the palace entrance. The floor was made of crystal clear glass, with flowing water underneath. It was so transparent and shining that it looked like a deep pool. When Bilqis reached the palace entrance, she thought it was water. To avoid getting wet, she lifted her dress. But Prophet Sulaiman said, "There is no need to lift your garment. This is a clear crystal floor. Walk across it." After she crossed, Sulaiman showed her the throne. Bilqis was astonished. Sulaiman asked, "Is your throne like this?" The queen looked carefully. At first she did not know what to say. She recognized it as her throne, but something seemed different. Then, on closer look, she realized it was indeed hers, brought from her palace before she arrived, with changes made to its design. This was yet another proof of Sulaiman's power. Bilqis was filled with admiration and thought deeply. She realized how weak her nation's beliefs were compared to the wisdom and truth of Prophet Sulaiman. She understood that the sun she and her people worshipped was nothing but a trap made attractive by Satan. For the first time, the brightness of the sun went dark in her heart, and a new light, one that never sets, filled her soul. The queen decided it was time to declare her faith. With sincere feelings, she admitted that she had been deceiving herself, and she accepted Islam. Soon after, Prophet Sulaiman and Queen Bilqis were married. As a result of these events, the people of Sheba followed their queen. In a short time, they abandoned sun worship and began to bow only to Allah. According to Islamic sources, Prophet Sulaiman lived for about 500 years. One day, as he marched with his army, they approached the Valley of the Ants. At that moment, he heard the voice of one of the ants calling out, "Oh, ants! Go into your homes, so that Sulaiman and his army do not crush you without noticing." When Sulaiman heard these words, he smiled and replied to the ant, "My kingdom is temporary. The life of this world is limited, but the reward of saying La ilaha illallah, the oneness of Allah, is eternal." Allah had given Prophet Sulaiman a life full of miracles and glory. He was both a king and a prophet. But when the end of his life came, a surprising death awaited him. One day Sulaiman withdrew into his private chamber in the palace. The doors were closed. Alone in silence, he suddenly noticed a young man standing with him in the room. "Who are you?" he asked. The young man replied, "O Prophet of Allah, peace be upon you." Sulaiman asked, "How did you enter here?" The young man answered, "O Sulaiman, I am the one whom the guards at your door cannot stop. The palaces I enter fall silent. The bodies I visit soon lie in the soil." At these words, Sulaiman realized this was the angel of death, Azrael. Leaning on his staff, Sulaiman stood and spoke with Azrael. Then, as his soul was taken, the prophet remained standing, still resting upon his staff. Days and months passed. People who saw Sulaiman standing at his staff thought he was alive. Out of respect, they did not disturb him. Even the Jinn believed he was still alive. They continued working under his command, carrying out the hard and humiliating tasks he had set for them. But then, a small termite began to gnaw at his staff. As the days passed, the wood weakened and decayed. Finally, it broke, and Sulaiman's body fell to the ground. Only then did everyone realize that Prophet Sulaiman had died long before. The Qur'an tells us about this event, showing us that even the Jinn do not know the unseen. They did not realize he had died until a creature of the earth ate away his staff. And when he fell, the Jinn understood that if they had known the unseen, they would not have remained in humiliating labor. The Jinn were left in shock. Their master had long been dead, and they had been working in vain, carrying out heavy labor for nothing. Thus ended a kingdom unlike any other in history. Sulaiman was the only prophet who ruled over the Jinn. After him, no one ever had, and no one ever will have, such power. With the death of Prophet Sulaiman, Allah caused the ring on his finger to disappear. The ring was lost, and until today many people across the world are still searching for it. The children of Israel also returned to the books of magic and Kabbalah that Sulaiman had forbidden and buried, and they began to study them again. In Bayt al-Maqdis, the sanctuary built with the help of the Jinn, rested the Holy Ark of the Covenant. But not long after Sulaiman's death, King Nebuchadnezzar attacked Jerusalem, burning the city and destroying it. The time of Prophet Sulaiman had taken place in the sacred site known then as Bayt al-Maqdis, which today we call Masjid al-Aqsa. Over the centuries, this sanctuary was destroyed and rebuilt several times, and eventually became known by the name we know today. The story told in our noble Qur'an is a sign of the greatness of knowledge, the honor of scholars, and the fact that knowledge is a blessing from Allah, a blessing that requires gratitude. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. With your support, we can reach more people and share this story further. See you in the next video on Religious Story TV. May Allah protect you.